Before we begin, I want you to imagine something with me. Imagine you are the CEO of a large company. Your investors want quick profits. Your competitors are cutting corners, and you discover a way to save millions of dollars, but it involves bending the rules just a little. No one may notice, at least not immediately. Now the question is simple. Do you take the shortcut, or do you do what is right, even if it costs more today? That decision, repeated every day in businesses around the world, is what separates ethical leadership from corporate failure. And today, we are going to explore why ethical leadership is no longer just about morality. It is about survival. It is about profitability. It is about sustainability. For many decades, business success was defined by one main goal: maximize shareholder profit. Companies were taught, grow fast, cut costs, beat competitors, increase quarterly earnings. And while profits are important, no business can survive without them. Many leaders misunderstood something crucial. They believed profit should come at any cost. And history has shown us that this mindset destroys companies. Let's start with the automotive industry, one of the most competitive and technologically advanced industries in the world. These are companies with brilliant engineers, global reach, and massive resources. Yet some of the biggest corporate scandals came from this very industry. Why? Because ethical leadership was missing. Take Volkswagen. Volkswagen wanted to be known as an environmentally friendly car company. Customers were becoming more conscious about pollution and climate change. So Volkswagen advertised their cars as clean and low emission. But instead of truly meeting environmental standards, leaders chose deception. They installed software that detected when cars were being tested and temporarily reduced emissions. Once on the road, pollution levels increased dramatically. On paper, everything looked perfect. In reality, it was a lie. For a few years, profits soared. Sales increased. Stock prices rose. Executives were praised. But when the truth came out, everything collapsed. Billions of dollars in fines, massive recalls, criminal charges, and a reputation that is still struggling to recover. This wasn't a technical failure. It was a leadership failure. When we talk about Volkswagen, we are not talking about a struggling company. Before the scandal, Volkswagen was one of the largest and most respected car manufacturers in the world. They were competing aggressively with Toyota and General Motors to become the #1 automaker globally. At the same time, something important was happening in society. Customers were becoming more aware of climate change, air pollution, health risks from vehicle emissions, environmental responsibility. Governments were tightening environmental regulations. Consumers were actively choosing green products. Being environmentally friendly was no longer just good ethics, it was good business. Volkswagen leadership saw this shift clearly. They wanted Volkswagen to be seen as powerful, innovative, affordable, and environmentally clean, especially in the US and Europe, where emission standards were strict. The big business pressure here was the challenge Volkswagen faced. To truly meet low emission standards while maintaining high performance and low cost was technically difficult and expensive. Clean engines required more research, more costly technology, longer development time, and Volkswagen was under intense pressure to grow faster than competitors, dominate the global market, deliver strong quarterly profits. So leadership faced a choice. Option 1. Invest heavily in real clean technology. Slow, expensive, honest. Option 2, find a shortcut. Fast, cheap, deceptive. And they chose the shortcut. The deception strategy, Volkswagen engineers were instructed to install a special software in diesel vehicles. This software was designed to recognize when the car was undergoing official emissions testing. During the test, the engine reduced emissions, pollution levels stayed within legal limits, so regulators saw clean results. But once the car returned to normal driving conditions, the software turned off pollution controls, emissions increased, sometimes up to 40 times legal limits. So in everyday use, the cars were heavily polluting. On paper, perfect. In reality, massively harmful. Why? Leadership loved it. At first, because the deception worked. Volkswagen could now advertise clean diesel cars, meet regulations on paper, keep costs low, sell high-performance vehicles. Sales exploded. Customers trusted the brand. Stock prices rose. Executives received praise and bonuses. Volkswagen became a global environmental success story. From a short-term business view, it looked brilliant. But ethically, it was built on lies. When the truth came out. Eventually, independent researchers noticed strange differences between lab tests and real-world driving emissions. Investigations followed, and the truth was exposed. The impact was immediate and massive. Volkswagen faced over $30 billion in fines and settlements, criminal charges against executives, millions of vehicle recalls worldwide, government bans and restrictions, lawsuits from customers and investors. But even more damaging than money was something harder to fix. Trust customers felt betrayed, governments became stricter, investors lost confidence. The company's reputation, built over decades, was destroyed in months. The real cost of unethical leadership. Here's the key lesson. Volkswagen didn't fail because their engineers were incompetent, they lacked technology, they didn't understand emissions, they failed because leadership prioritized short-term profits, rewarded deception, pressured performance at any cost, ignored ethical responsibility. This created a culture where cheating became acceptable. Once leaders signal that results matter more than integrity, unethical behavior spreads throughout the organization. Why this is a leadership failure, not just a technical one. Software doesn't decide to lie, people do. Systems don't choose deception, leaders do. If leadership had said, "We will grow more slowly but honestly," this scandal would never have happened. But when leaders focus only on numbers, sales, profits, market share, employees feel pressure to deliver results by any means necessary. That is how unethical cultures are created. The bigger business lesson. Volkswagen's case shows us something powerful. Short-term success built on unethical behavior always carries hidden risk. It may look profitable today, but eventually, regulators catch up. Truth emerges, public trust collapses, and the long-term cost is far greater than the short-term gain. Volkswagen tried to save money and grow faster by cheating. They gained billions temporarily. They lost far more in the end: money, reputation, trust, and stability. That is why we say this was not an engineering problem. This was not a technology problem. This was an ethical leadership problem. Unethical leadership did not only fail Volkswagen, it also failed several other companies who went to take the shortcut for more profits rather than taking the extra mile for long-term business benefits. Another example is the company Takata. Takata produced airbags used by almost every major car manufacturer. They discovered early on that their airbags could explode due to a chemical defect. Instead of recalling them immediately, which would have been expensive, leaders delayed action. They minimized reports. They avoided transparency. They chose profit over safety. The result? People were injured. People were killed. The scandal became one of the largest automotive recalls in history, and eventually, Takata went bankrupt. Again, not because of lack of knowledge, but because of lack of ethical leadership. Then there's Nissan, where leadership misconduct, misuse of company funds, and lack of transparency damaged trust among investors and employees. The company faced instability, falling confidence, and reputational harm. Let's unpack the Nissan story slowly and clearly, because this case shows how ethical failure at the very top of leadership can shake an entire global corporation, even when the company itself is financially strong. When we talk about Nissan, we are talking about one of the most important car companies in the world. Nissan was once praised as a turnaround success story. Years earlier, the company had been struggling financially. Strong leadership helped restructure operations, cut waste, improve efficiency, and return Nissan to profitability. Investors were happy. Employees felt secure. The company regained global respect. On the surface, everything looked successful. But behind the scenes, serious ethical problems were growing at the leadership level. What actually went wrong? At the center of the scandal were accusations that top executives underreported their compensation, used company money for personal expenses, shifted company funds through hidden arrangements, failed to disclose financial benefits properly, avoided transparency with regulators and shareholders. In simple terms, leadership was allegedly using corporate resources for personal gain while hiding the truth. This wasn't about a small accounting error. It was about systematic misuse of power and lack of honesty at the highest level of the company. Why this hurt Nissan so badly? In business, trust is everything. Investors trust leaders to manage money responsibly. Employees trust leaders to act fairly. Partners trust leaders to operate honestly. When leadership misconduct becomes public, three things happen immediately. 1. Investor confidence collapses. Stock prices fall. Investors fear instability. Future funding becomes harder. 2. Employee morale drops. Workers feel betrayed. Productivity declines. Talented staff leave. 3. Public reputation suffers. Customers question the brand. Regulators increase scrutiny. Media attention becomes negative. This is exactly what Nissan experienced. The company entered a period of uncertainty, leadership chaos, and declining confidence. Even though Nissan still made cars well, the ethical crisis overshadowed the business itself. The deeper problem: culture at the top. What makes this case especially important for ethical leadership is this. When unethical behavior happens at the top, it sends a powerful message throughout the organization. If leaders bend rules, others feel pressure or permission to do the same. It creates a culture where transparency becomes optional, accountability weakens, results matter more than integrity, and once that culture forms, ethical problems spread quickly. This is how strong companies slowly rot from the inside. Why Nissan looked successful until it wasn't. Here's the dangerous illusion. For a while, Nissan still appeared profitable. Cars were still selling, operations still functioned. So from the outside, everything seemed fine. But ethical damage often works like a disease. It doesn't destroy instantly. It weakens the organization quietly. Then one scandal exposes everything. And suddenly, trust collapses. Leadership stability disappears. The company struggles to move forward. Nissan didn't start failing because its cars became bad. It struggled because ethical credibility at the top collapsed. Once leaders lose moral authority, strategic decisions are questioned. Employees disengage. Investors pull back. Regulators intervene. Ethical leadership is the foundation that holds everything else together. Now connect Nissan with Volkswagen and Takata. Different industries, different problems, but the same pattern. Strong companies under pressure to perform, leaders prioritize results over integrity, ethical shortcuts taken. Short-term success appears, truth emerges, massive, long-term damage follows. This cycle happens again and again in corporate history. Unethical leadership rarely destroys companies immediately. It usually boosts performance briefly, destroys stability. Long-term ethical failures act like hidden time bombs. They may not explode today, but they will explode eventually. Simple way to remember it. You can cheat your way to short-term success, but you cannot cheat your way to long-term trust. And without trust, businesses weaken, markets punish, reputations collapse. Final leadership lesson from Nissan. Strong systems, smart strategies, and good products cannot save a company when ethical leadership collapses. Because in the end, trust is the most valuable asset any organization has, and ethical leadership is what protects it. The companies we just discussed are not small businesses. These are global giants. If unethical leadership can destroy billion-dollar companies, imagine what it can do to smaller firms. This is why ethical leadership is now considered a core business strategy. So let's clearly define what ethical leadership actually means. Ethical leadership is not just following the law. It goes beyond legal compliance. It means being honest even when lying is easier, being transparent even when hiding is profitable, protecting people even when cutting corners is cheaper, thinking long-term even when short-term gains are tempting. Ethical leaders don't ask, how can we make money fastest? They ask, how can we grow responsibly and sustainably? They understand that business impacts real lives. Employees depend on companies for livelihood. Customers depend on companies for safety and quality. Communities depend on companies for environmental protection. Ethical leadership recognizes this responsibility. Let's bring this closer to everyday life. Imagine you own a restaurant. You discover that using cheaper ingredients saves money, but slightly lowers food quality and safety. Option 1, use cheaper ingredients, make more profit now. Option 2, maintain high standards, even if costs are higher. If you choose the cheap option, profits may rise this month. But if customers get sick, lose trust, or leave bad reviews, your business will collapse. If you choose quality, customers return, recommend your restaurant, and build your brand. Ethical choices create long-term success. This is the same principle in large corporations. The PowerPoint slides this week explain ethical leadership using 3 powerful business theories. Let's walk through them in everyday language. The first is the resource-based view. This theory says that companies gain competitive advantage from resources that are hard to copy. Anyone can buy machines, anyone can hire workers, anyone can raise capital, but not everyone can build trust. Not everyone can build a strong ethical culture. Not everyone can create a reputation for integrity. When a company is known for honesty and responsibility, customers remain loyal, employees stay committed, investors feel secure. That reputation becomes a business asset, just like technology or patents. Ethical leadership creates this asset. The second theory is stakeholder theory. Traditionally, businesses focused only on shareholders, but modern business recognizes that many groups matter. Think of all the people affected by one company: workers who rely on salaries, families who depend on those incomes, customers who trust, product safety communities affected by pollution, governments collecting taxes, the environment supporting production. Ethical leadership balances all these interests. When one group is abused, such as workers being underpaid or the environment being destroyed, eventually the business suffers. Strikes happen, lawsuits arise, public backlash grows, but when stakeholders are respected, stability follows. The third theory is signaling theory. In business, actions communicate messages. When a company is transparent about its finances, ethics, and sustainability efforts, it sends a positive signal. It tells the world, we are trustworthy. We manage risks responsibly. We plan for the future. This attracts investors and customers. When companies hide information or manipulate data, the signal is negative. Trust disappears. And once trust is lost, it is extremely difficult to regain. Now let's connect ethical leadership to sustainability. Modern companies increasingly align with global sustainability goals, such as reducing pollution, improving worker conditions, promoting innovation, and supporting communities. But the research did something very interesting. It didn't just ask whether companies mentioned sustainability. It measured how seriously they practiced it in 3 ways. First, depth. Depth means how detailed and transparent sustainability reporting is. Companies with deep engagement openly discuss environmental impact, energy usage, labor practices, community projects, safety measures. They don't hide problems. They report progress honestly. This builds trust with investors, regulators, and the public. Second, breadth. Breadth refers to how many sustainability areas a company covers. Some companies only talk about the environment. Others include employee welfare, diversity and inclusion, innovation, education, health and safety, responsible sourcing. Broad sustainability efforts show holistic responsibility. Third, concentration. This measures balance. Instead of focusing heavily on one goal while ignoring others, companies distribute effort wisely across sustainability priorities. This reduces risk and improves overall performance. Now, here is the most important result of the study. Ethical leadership alone improves financial performance and sustainability, but ethical leadership combined with strong sustainability action produces even greater benefits. In other words, ethics plus action equals stronger companies. Why does this happen? Because ethical companies waste fewer resources, avoid lawsuits and fines, reduce employee turnover, improve operational efficiency, build loyal customer bases, attract long-term investors. Sustainability saves money. Ethics reduces risk. Trust creates growth. Let's use another relatable example. Imagine 2 clothing brands. Brand A pays workers fairly, uses sustainable materials, and is transparent about sourcing. Brand B uses sweatshops, hides labor conditions, and cuts environmental corners. Brand B can sell cheaper clothes initially, but when documentaries expose poor working conditions, customers boycott. Governments fine them. Retailers drop their products. Brand A, meanwhile, gains loyal customers who trust the brand. Over time, Brand A becomes more profitable. This is happening across industries today. Consumers increasingly support responsible companies. Now let's return to the automotive scenario. Imagine two electric vehicle manufacturers. One invests in clean energy factories, safe labor practices, and transparent reporting. The other hides pollution, underpays workers, and manipulates data. At first, the unethical company may show higher profits, but over time, scandals emerge, regulations tighten, trust collapses. The ethical company attracts investors focused on sustainability. Customers feel proud to support it. It grows steadily and securely. This is financial resilience. Now, what does this mean for different groups? For leaders, ethics must be embedded in company culture, not just written in mission statements. For policymakers, encouraging transparency and sustainability reporting protects economies. For investors, ethical companies represent lower long-term risk. Let's close with the most important lesson. Ethics is no longer separate from business success. They are directly connected. Sustainability is not charity. It is smart strategy. The companies of the future will not be those who exploit fastest. They will be those who innovate responsibly. They will be those who build trust. They will be those who lead ethically. And so I leave you with this final reflection. Every major corporate disaster began with a small, unethical decision that someone justified. Every long-lasting, successful company was built by leaders who chose integrity over shortcuts. As future leaders, managers, researchers, and professionals, the question is not whether ethics matter. The question is, what kind of leader will you become when profit and principles conflict? Because that moment will define your career and possibly the fate of an entire organization.